guys. How's everyone doing? Hi. We're going to be starting the live stream in about 5 minutes. And it's going to be broadcast on a host of different Facebook channels. Shall I mic up? Can you guys hear me? Yeah? This mic's on, but I don't think it's... All right, is that better? Hi guys. Morning. Thank you everyone for coming. Like 95% women. It's always, it's good. It's always good to see the people that are the forefront of empowering and progressing themselves. We're going to be starting the live stream in about 5 minutes time. And we want to start in quite an unconventional way by giving you guys a platform to introduce yourselves and what you're doing around climate change, around social justice, very briefly. So if you guys are interested in introducing yourself on the live stream and some of the work you do, just raise your hand so I can identify who's interested. This is an easy one. I'm saying, do you want a platform to reach lots of people on social media? One. Anybody else? Two. You can just tell me what you do. You can even be a student and tell us why you're here. 3, 4. Yeah? You've been nominated. Okay, so those that are keen, what I'll get you guys to do is, maybe you guys can just like file in somewhere here in about 3 minutes time, so you don't have to go right now. And basically we'll start the live stream here and I'll be like blah, 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 blah. You'll come in, you'll say your bit, and then you'll pan off and then the next, and we'll kind of do it like a factory line of introductions. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, cool. I'll be back in about 3 minutes and we'll start moving in that direction. Hey, hi Kumi. I've been a fan for a very long time.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah. What's your name?
Yusuf Omar.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so we like
The hashtag express.
Yes. Wow.
he had this good sense to marry a South African.
Yeah, my wife is from Durban.
And nobody's perfect.
I'll tell you what, I ran the comrades and proposed at the finish line. So in my defense, I was dehydrated, I was hallucinating. It was a very long run. And I was, this was 2000.
I'm gonna bet now. Yeah, of course. I will not make that.
All right, so we're gonna start live. What's that? Oh, you're already live. All right. Who is joining me on stage to introduce yourselves? Who's keen to introduce yourselves? If you guys are, just make a short line over here. Just over here, you're gonna make a short line. Guys, this is a good opportunity. You're going live to several Facebook pages. It's a platform to tell us all of the amazing work that you are doing. All right. So I'm going to be sitting here. Who else have we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Okay. United Voices of Peace and Climate Action. We're going to have an introduction of some of the amazing people in this room so you guys can get a sense of who's here for the live stream. And you guys are going to stream in, take a seat, tell me about yourself really quickly, and then move off this way. Yeah, come down.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm Monica Singh. I'm one of the co-hosts, and it is a great honor for me to share this moment with Peaceday365 in the New Now. And today is a very important day. Let's do amazing event together, United Voices of Peace. Thank you.
Fantastic. Round of applause. All right, who else is coming to introduce themselves? Come. Let's go. This is like a tweet. It's really quick. And go for it.
Yeah. Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Elizabeth Lua. I'm an international student and I'm from Guinea, which is located in West Africa. And here I'm studying international affairs. And the reason why I chose that because I want to help my community coming from a third world country. So we have an NGO with my family. So we support women's education. We promote them and encourage young girls to continue their education. So I'm contributing in reducing gender inequality. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Who's up next? Introduce yourself. The most colorful man in the room. Say hello.
Hi everyone. My name is Kennedy Hadithi Gashiri. I'm the CEO of The New Now. We work with transformative global leaders who are trying to effect change, create a fairer, more just planet. Some of our leaders are here. Roya, Aziz, you're going to be hearing from Fawiza. Jaha will be joining us as well. And just really excited to be here and to kind of commune with all of you.
Thank you for bringing so many speakers today. We're excited to be working with you. Who else wants to come and say hello to our live stream and our real audience?
Thank you. I'm Ashley Nelson. I'm the Communications Director at the International Coalition of Sites of Conscience. We are a network of over 275 historic sites, memorials, and museums in over 65 countries that connect past struggles to today's contemporary fights for human rights. So we connect memory to action, and we're very excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. We're excited to have you here. Who's up next? Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm Jessica Levy. I'm a research fellow on justice, peace, and security for the Public International Law and Policy Group, and I'm excited to be here on the sidelines of the UN because climate and security are closely entwined. So I'm excited to be representing PLPG.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hey. Tell us about yourself.
Good morning. My name is Jillian Papa. I'm an international business major here at LIM. I volunteer and I play for the Global Goals World Cup. So we'll see everyone on Wednesday, whoever goes.
That is so exciting. Fantastic. Hey.
Hi, my name is Dr. Gayatri Bandawara. I'm a teacher. I'm a professor here at LIM College. Welcome all of you here. It's a privilege to be hosting part of the house. I am excited. I'm passionate about CSR, social justice. I'm hoping we all are inspired by the time we finish our 2-hour session. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to introduce themselves? Take the platform before we begin? No takers? Okay, well, welcome to United Voices of Peace and Climate Action. Boy, has it been an incredibly exciting couple of days. My name is Yusuf Omar. I'm going to be one of your hosts for today. I am a mojo. Anyone know what a mojo is? No? It's not Austin Powers. Mojo is mobile journalism. I shoot, I edit, I produce using a mobile phone. I've been doing it since 2010. Reported on Syria and some of the big events that have taken place around the world. I was a reporter at CNN. And today I've co-founded #OurStories. And we are a video publisher. And we've been to 140 countries and trained up over 3,000 people how to tell stories with their mobile phones or even wearable cameras like the camera I'm wearing on my face today to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. And we publish a video every single day. And the videos that we produce reach about 7 million people a day. So we reach lots of people talking about really important topics around the SDGs. I'm going to see if our first panel is ready to rock and roll. 1 second. Are we ready to rock and roll, guys? Are you guys good to go? Shannon? Sharon? You guys good to go? Yeah? All right, first panel is ready to go. We are really excited about this. The first one is climate justice, leadership, protest, and political will. And if we break down those 3 words, leadership, you guys might have seen on your social media timelines this week, there was a picture, I'm sure you've seen it, of Greta a year or 2 ago in Europe on a street corner on her own with a small placard motivating for climate justice. And then you jump forward a year and there are literally millions of people around the world that have been galvanized around this movement. It's been so exciting to see how that has grown, how that has become such a big thing. Protests. Protests have moved in really interesting ways over the last couple months. Anyone following Extinction Rebellion? Yeah? I was there. I was in London where protesters were literally gluing their hands to the side of trucks and buses, bringing the city centre to a standstill. Radical activism, the objective to get arrested, to bring awareness around climate change. So protests are changing in a massive way. And in terms of political will, any of you guys at the Youth Climate Summit this week? Yeah, it was a really exciting event, and it was really great to see that there were young people from around the world, but there were also presidents and prime ministers that were representing, that were showing up, that were listening to their voices. Now we've got a fantastic, really exciting panel for us here today. First up, I would like to call on Fariza Farhan, if you can join us. Fariza is doing incredible stuff in Indonesia and around the world, looking to protect communities and forests that are being massively encroached on by palm oil companies and other sorts of issues. Fariza, come and take a seat. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, Fariza is also the New Now founder. She was one of the leaders of the New Now. She's very, very much instrumental. Katie, thank you so much for joining us, Katie. Katie has been at the forefront of the climate strikes that have taken place here in North America and is working with communities around the world on this movement. It is just unbelievable how many young people have got behind your cause over the last couple of weeks. It's been truly exciting. And Kumi Naidu, I've been meaning to meet you forever. I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. Secretary General of Amnesty International. He's crazy. He's the guy who's like climbing up oil rigs and like if we've seen Extinction Rebellion being a movement in kind of like aggressive protesting, you guys were at the forefront of that kind of aggression. Thank you so much for joining us. I think I'll start with a quick opening statement, if you will, from each of you guys.
Okay, I kind of would like to pass it on to the youngest amongst us.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Katie Eater, I'm 19, and I'm the Executive Director of the Future Coalition, which is a network of youth-led organizations and youth organizers in the U.S. So essentially we work to provide a connective tissue between young people who are making change in their communities and then work to provide them resources that traditionally have only been available for adults. And so for the September 20th climate strikes that happened on Friday, over 4 million people worldwide strike, which was amazing. And we helped in the U.S. coordinate the coalition of youth-led organizations that planned the campaign in the U.S. So we worked with 8 amazing youth-led climate groups in the States to put together the day and make it as powerful as possible, not just getting as many people out in the streets as possible, but really making it the launch of a new era of the movement. And so we're really excited and going off a lot of the energy that we saw on Friday and excited for all that's to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Riza. I work in this place called the Loise ecosystem in Sumatra in Indonesia. And sadly, it is the last place on earth where rhino, tiger, elephant, and orangutan still roam together in the wild. But it's a large landscape of 2.7 million hectares that not only sustain biodiversity, it also sustains life. Millions of people depend on them, but beyond anything, very relevant to our topics today. Forests, the destruction of forests accelerate climate change, and protecting forests and restoring forests is one of the cheapest solutions to mitigate climate change. So I want to pass it on.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kumi Naidu. I'm the Secretary General of Amnesty International, and Amnesty is focused on social, economic, political rights, and civil and political rights. We are focused very much now on climate because we recognize that climate constitutes a death penalty facing the entire humanity on this planet. And we have just come out of a very historic meeting last week, Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, where for the first time we brought together human rights organizations and, if you want, non-traditional and non-environmental organizations to ask the question, what does the human rights community need to bring to the climate fight? I would argue that in 1992, when the first Earth-Rio summit happened, we made a catastrophic error by letting the question of climate change be framed primarily as an environmental issue rather than as a cross-cutting issue, which is about our economy, it's about our consumption patterns, it's about life in general. And so even though it's late, that the human rights community is coming full force to the struggle to avert catastrophic climate change. As they say, better late than never.
Thank you so much. I think there's probably three brackets we can frame this discussion in, starting with mobilization of people around the world, looking at grassroots community movements that are taking place, and then of course on a policy level, how do we get the leaders to actually give a shit and do something about this? So there's many different ways you can play this, and starting with mobilization, Katie, how do you go from small movements to big movements? How do you go from individual groups of organizations to this coalition? How did you go from a few thousand people to a few million people?
Yeah, thanks. Definitely. So, I mean, I think, over the last year we've seen the strike movement, less so in North America, but really in Europe, expand and grow. And, there are weekly strikes every Friday, and there's what we call deep strikes, which is what we saw on the 20th, and what we saw earlier in the year on May 24th and March 15th. And so those are, the times when organizers are really putting in the effort to get as many people to strike as possible. And in the U.S., what we noticed was, March 15th, we didn't have as big of a turnout, we weren't comparable to what we saw in Europe. I mean, Europe were tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and we had on March 15th around 40,000 people. And so when September 20th was announced, and sort of the question was that because it's happening right before the UN summit, in New York City, all eyes were going to be on the U.S. And so how are we going to ensure that the U.S. and young people, specifically in the U.S., were mobilizing to the degree that we were seeing in other countries and getting as many people as possible to take those streets? And what we noticed was that one of the reasons why we were able to turn out so many people was that our movement in the States, the climate movement in the States, was working very siloed from each other. So, young people and adults were not working together. Grassroots organizations and institutional organizations were not working together. And even within those different segments, there were these 8 youth-led climate groups, and none of them had really been collaborating. None of them had space for collaboration. And so one of the things that we knew was going to be really important was that the entire movement came together to organize the strikes that happened on Friday so that we had our collective power in what we were doing. And so that's why we created both a youth coalition and an adult coalition so that both groups could collaborate with each other and mobilize their base while still having the energy and power that we get by being a collective and combining everything that all of us have.
Thank you so much. It seems like often this is a story of responsibility and whose responsibility is it to deal with climate change? And of course, you've got millions that are mobilizing on the streets of New York and around the world. Arwiza, you're working on kind of the opposite end of the spectrum in some respect. You're in the far-flung communities of Indonesia, and it seems like you're often helping to realize that the responsibility actually lies with the community, and it seems specifically women in some of those communities. Am I right?
Yeah, you're partly right. I mean, at the end of the day, the impact of climate change will be felt by all of us. It's not going to be, but at the same time, for my community, the impact of climate change is very real. It's the lack of water, it's failed crops, it's those that directly relates to their day-to-day life and their well-being. So for them, fighting climate change is less on lobbying on a high level, but rather on protecting forests of the area and restoring forests to restore a source of water. And we could not deny the impact of globalization, the impact of decisions that is made on the global level and how they would translate into the life of local community. So when countries like the US decide to pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement, it's the local community in Indonesia that will be dealing with the impact, because the forest fire that is currently happening in Brazil is also happening all throughout Sumatra and Kalimantan. And we might not even think about cases like forest fire as something relatable to us, but that's a violation of human rights when children are forced to be inhaling toxic smoke because companies decide to expand in ways that is economically appear cheaper for them and negating the responsibilities to local communities, when in reality companies, corporations, and government are liable.
So in one respect, you've taken some of these companies to court. You've taken the palm oil companies to court, and it's this amazing story of really the small communities taking on these big giants. And we've seen this playing out even at the Youth Climate Summit. We saw young people that were holding Nike and Microsoft and all these big firms accountable for the partnerships and the decisions they make. But I've also noticed that you're doing really cool stuff with women rangers that are at the forefront of policing some of these forests.
The impact of climate change is exacerbating already inequality around gender. Women make up half of the world population, but it's very few of them that come into decision making. So what we're doing in training all these women through environmental impact assessment, giving them paralegal training, and eventually enabling them the tools and the space to protect their own forests, to make decisions on what they will do to their environment. Because at the end of the day, their life is at stake as much as the life of the man. I come across a group, this is a very sad story. I come across a group of women who are living near an illegal gold mine. Expectantly, they are consuming shellfish that come from the river, and that leads into health issues. Some of these women are giving birth to babies that have birth defect. And some of them have to face the consequences of their husband leaving them because they don't want to be dealing with this new layer of difficulties. So environmental issues are human rights issues. Environmental issues are health issues. Environmental issues are economic and well-being issues.
Thank you so much. Kumi, you introduced yourself saying this is a human rights issue. You were part of one of the greatest human rights fights, at least of my life, which was the end of apartheid. A challenge that seemed insurmountable, an enormous human rights abuse, and yet through global international pressure, through activism, you guys were able to fight it and beat it. What policy levers are we missing that perhaps you learnt from that struggle that we can apply to the climate change struggle?
Okay, thank you. Before I answer the question, can I ask the audience a question?
Yeah.
How many of you understand what policy levers are? How many of you understand what policy levers are? So there's a lot of people nodding their heads. So thank you for posing the question with that, because it does allow me to make the most important point that I feel we need to make about climate. Because bottom line is, those of us who have been involved in these struggles for a long time start talking in ways that are not sufficiently accessible to ordinary people's experience. One of the reasons we have not made sort of progress with climate is the fact that we have shut out unwittingly 99% of the people from the conversation. Because, like, for example, you know, when we say 350 parts per million, 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees, if you walk out on the streets of New York here and you ask people what is fossil fuels, I guarantee you more than half the people would think you're talking about Donald Trump, or, you know, and they'll think food rather than fuel. So basically, and let me give you a small example, right, to make the point, since you mentioned to occupying oil rigs in the Arctic. So when I was occupying this oil rig in Greenland several years ago, 2011, and as I was bumping along in this little, you know, inflatable boat, I looked at the sign that was carrying, and it said, "Stop Arctic Destruction." And then I looked at the waves, and I'm not a good swimmer, so I was a bit nervous. And then my colleagues noticed that. They said, "No, don't worry, you know, if you fall in, you will be rescued, you know, and you won't die immediately, because with normal boats will be gone in 3 minutes, 4 minutes, because the water is so cold." So then I was thinking, you know, if I kicked it here today, if I died here, 99.99% of the people in my life back home in Africa, my friends, family, comrades, or both, won't know what that last slogan that I was carrying, because it meant nothing to their experience. Stop Arctic destruction. And my daughter, who was then about 16, said, "You know, Dad, a better slogan would have been, save Santa Claus now."
Right.
Right? You get it? Because the only association that ordinary people have with that part of the world is that, you know, Santa Claus is hanging out there in the North Pole. And so we have to, before we even get to thinking about the policy area, you know, which institutions are amenable for lobbying, we need to make sure that we actually try and simplify our language. Not simplistic, but simplify the language and bring more people into the conversation. I just want to pay tribute to the school strike movement. I mean, I think this has been one of the most inspiring things humanity has ever seen. And what's also very impressive is that I've had the privilege of meeting many of the leadership in many countries, and they're all dominated by young women. And maybe given the strong points that you made about the centrality of gender and the disproportionate impact, that's a sign of hope. But I just want to caution, right? We come here to the UN with the hope that we're going to influence the General Assembly by our presence and our what we say. We must be very clear that there's an element that is a little bit delusional, right? Because most of the heads of state have come here, they've already worked out what they're going to say. We can say whatever we want to say with them. They're like robots, and they just like, say what some bureaucrat. So right now, I would say, and this might sound like an inappropriate response, the best policy lever we have is in fact the streets. It is in fact activism. Because when people like myself are trying to push them inside, if you don't have large forces of people who are making it inconvenient for political leaders to continue to ignore action, if they are not threatened in electoral terms, they are not, that they will lose elections, and if business leaders are not threatened in the sense that they're going to lose profit and lose reputation and so on, they're not going to act. So all of the things that we do moving forward, I would argue the main investment that we need to make is build people power, build an informed, engaged global citizenry that recognizes that what we are fighting for here is not about saving the planet. Because, by the way, if I can just close by saying, the planet actually does not need saving. Because we continue on the path that we are, what happens? We destroy our water resources, we destroy our land resources, we destroy our ability to produce food, and it's getting hotter and hotter all the time. The end result is, we will be gone, the planet will still be here. And the good news is, once we become extinct as a species, the forests of Kalimantan and Sumatra will grow back, the oceans will replenish and so on. So let us understand the struggle to avert catastrophic climate change is nothing more and nothing less than protecting our children and their children's future. And our call in terms of every political leader, every business leader who are people who control policy making has to be very simply this. You cannot continue to play political poker with the future of our children. Nature does not negotiate. We cannot change the science, and all that we can change is political will. And if it means we have to mount the largest civil disobedience set of resistance peacefully, then that's what we're going to do until they start moving. And that's the best way to get policymakers to make the changes that they should be making based on the power that they control, whether it's a local government, whether it's the CEO of a company, whether it's the UN, whether it's a national government.
Thank you so much. We're almost at the end of this panel. I'm going to go to you for one last statement, Katie. Kumi's calling for civil disobedience where necessary. We've seen this take place around the world. Universal Studios, some people strapped themselves to the globe that was spinning around, and all over the world, even at Heathrow Airport over the last 2 weeks, we've seen people taking off drones to make it difficult for planes to fly when they're launching new terminals. How far do you think that's going to go here in North America? Are we going to see illegal acts that are taking place in the name of raising awareness around climate change?
Well, as we speak right now, there are amazing activists in Washington, D.C. who are shutting down the city and are making it very difficult for people to get around. So yes, I think that people are prepared to go to whatever lengths are necessary. I think that, when we said on Friday that this is just the beginning, we meant it, and we're going to continue to mobilize young people and all people until we see action, because if we don't, we may not get a future. And so we're going to push until we see it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to our first panel for Wiza, Katie, Kumi. Thank you so much for joining us here today. It was really, really fantastic. We're jumping into the next session, this one's particularly dear. We're looking at women, technology, and cultural change. I was in South Africa over the last month, and August was the most violent month in history for women when it comes to femicides, when it comes to boyfriends and husbands that were literally killing their partners. It was a very, very real time where I saw an entire gender rise up across South Africa for the first time ever, marching on Parliament and saying enough is enough. We're going to be hearing more about ending violence and discrimination. I'm not going to be hosting this panel. I'm going to call on Jaha Dukure, who's going to be doing the honors. She has worked tirelessly to help thousands and thousands of young women's lives. She's the new now, one of the amazing leaders there. She's working in the FGM space. And she's going to do a really, really good job of hosting this panel. So I'm going to throw it to her right now. Thanks so much.
I would like to invite my panelists to join me while I introduce them, and then we will also invite Monica to share her stories. So Roya and Eric, you can please join me. To basically introduce myself, my name is Jaha Dukure, and I am originally from the Gambia, and I work on the issues of female genital mutilation and child marriage and violence against women as a whole. At 1 week old, I went through FGM, and at the age of 15, I was forced to get married. So a lot of what I do is a personal fight for me. It's not something I am unaware of, but it's something that I lived with, and I know the consequences of these practices firsthand. And I think it's important that women like myself have the opportunity to lead work within our own communities, because if anyone is going to speak on our behalf, we know what we're living with more than anyone else. So to me, being that 200 million women have been subjected to FGM globally and 68 million girls continue to be forced to get married every single year, I wanted to make sure that we put a human face to the issue, and I wanted to make sure that we put a human voice to the issue, which is why I decided to put myself out there. It's not fun to do so. It's not something that I enjoy doing, but I do realize that someone has to do it. And on the topic that we are talking about today, it's basically women, technology, culture change, and ending violence and discrimination. Just to introduce my panelists, Roya, who is a sister and also a member of the New Now, and someone I admire a lot. I look up to Roya for inspiration on a lot of things, and basically she's a serial entrepreneur. She's a tech guru, and she was the first female CEO in her native of Afghanistan. And she's also has done more to advance social and economic inclusion for women and girls in the tech field and beyond. Her nonprofit organization, Digital Citizen Fund, has brought STEM education to more than 14,000 girls and created more than 100 entrepreneurs in Afghanistan already. And then coming to Eric, who him and his twin brother became advocates for ending violence against girls and women at the age of 16. And they have been fighting for equality and the rights of women for more than a decade. Together they have become powerful voices and advocating men to play a vital role in communities to change social norms that allows discrimination and violence that scars women in our society. And just to talk a little bit about the topic, like I said before, violence against women and girls does not affect one type of people. It's not usually poor people that are affected by violence against women. It's not ignorant Africans that are usually affected by violence against women. Violence against women is embedded in patriarchal structures all over the world. And it's widespread, pervasive in all societies, vindicated by social norms that start at the time that we are girls. For instance, taking my community as an example, the first bad thing that happens to a girl when she's born is female genital mutilation, and that is used to prepare her for marriage. A lot of these things happen not in the benefit of a woman, but a lot of the practices that we see, especially the harmful traditional practices that we see, purely happen for the benefit of the man. And in order for us to end these practices, it's not only the problem of women. Ending violence against women and girls is not a women's rights issue, it's a human rights issue. And it's a moral obligation for all of us to care about these issues. And I think that's why I'm really, really happy about this panel, because having someone like Roya, who is in Afghanistan and using technology to make sure that we end violence, because a lot of times what I love about Roya is the fact that she uses entrepreneurship to help women and girls. And the root causes of a lot of these issues is poverty. I remember I was in a community a few weeks ago, and a woman told me the reason why she accepts a lot of things is because she doesn't have a choice and she doesn't have any money of her own. But by giving her the opportunity to earn her own income and a decent living, she's able to make choices not only for herself, but for her children as well. And with that being said, I want to get right into it so that I can give my panelists an opportunity to answer a few questions for me. So Roya, I guess, what is the role of technology in quelling violence against women?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to say that good morning everyone. Thank you very much, Jaha. And I want to just say that good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here today. And very happy to meet with Jaha again. And just like a sister for me, thank you very much for your nice and kind introduction. I think that the technology is a pathway to create jobs and roles, and also giving access to education, healthcare, and empowering young women in developing countries. It's also the link to bring the social change in developing countries. For me, technology was changing my life. And I was at the age of 16, when I was living in Afghanistan, I was totally living in the darkness. I didn't have any opportunity to go outside and to know more information or have access to the books, because there was only one library in Iraq, which only a few people could go there. There was only like very old books, we didn't have the updated. And that was when I introduced at the age of 16 to computer. And I always thought that this is the magic box that you could write whatever you want and you could find a lot of information. For me, the technology helped me to get my self-confidence, and it's helped me to get empowered, and that's also allowed me to talk digitally and be able to talk about whatever is happening around with me, with the world, with the people in the world. I became first female here in Afghanistan, and I was fighting a lot of the females as a blogger and performers. But in cities, still a lot of the violence still existed, and a lot of the discrimination against me was discriminated personally and professionally, because working in a tech also was another challenge.
Absolutely. So I think, Erin, I'll ask you the same thing. What the role of technology can be in quelling violence against women and girls.
Can y'all hear me? Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think technology has a crucial role in ending and preventing violence against women and girls. I mean, you look at #MeToo and how viral that went so quickly, and how it really did just shift culture, change the conversation, bring the voices of women and so many others into the mainstream. It's also great from like a storytelling perspective. I know we talk a lot about that. And for me as a prevention specialist, as someone who's in the classroom on the ground, doing the education and training and mobilization, it's a very useful tool, because one thing we know in culture shift is that people learn differently. And if you're giving a presentation that's full of words and statistics, that's not going to be a presentation that is really most effective at bringing people into the conversation who haven't been there before. Facilitate like one-on-one, never fill a slide with a bunch of words and small print. So technology allows us to make it more interactive. Right? I can go in and do a gender equality Jeopardy game. I can insert some videos. I can add a whole bunch of different ways for us to tell stories, share experiences, make a conversation and a dialogue engaging and exciting and entertaining for the folks that I'm working with. And so yeah, technology only enhances our ability to do this kind of work.
Monica, unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of brief about you before I started this panel, but I think one of the things that I would like to ask you is what actions are working in different cultural contexts to eradicate the different forms of violence against women that we see. but I think it's different from place to place. And like Eric said, technology plays a crucial role in all of this, but we see different forms of violence against women based on various regions. Like FGM is common in Africa, for instance, and Middle East and Southeast Asia, whereas we see other kinds of violence that may not be prevalent in Africa, but are equally as bad as any of the forms that we see in our own communities.
Hello everyone. Thank you for having this question because this is very crucial topic, and then I think where we are talking about the technologies helping us to reach out to spread the awareness about this issue. If you talk about 15 or 20 years ago, nobody was used to know about what is happening in a different part of the world and what issues were rising. And I think technology was one of the crucial, important tools right now we have, which brings us together. Now you are more aware about the issues happening in a different country, and then how to solve these things. So I think technology helped me to reach out to that level where I can be reached to different women who have suffered from the different violence, rape, domestic abuse, FGM, or any other violence. So technology is very important because now their voices can be spread to all entire world at the same time. So like right now, all these discussions we are having, this is also reaching in every zone of the world right now. So everybody is watching. So technology is important, and whatever the discussion or any influencer, social activists, which are bringing their potential tools and incorporating their expertise to bring out these changes, I think that's what I believe that technology is helping us to do that more and more. So that's my
So Roya, back to you. I think, when I've never been to Afghanistan, and I imagine it must have been super challenging for you to not only be a young person, but to be a woman, and to try to help other women, especially everything that you've done. I think it's important for us to understand what inspired you to do that as a young woman, and being that it's not common for young women to be involved in technology in Afghanistan, and being that you could have faced so much violence just because of where you live and where you come from. So I think for me it's important for us to understand what inspired you to start in the first place and what keeps you going.
I think that one of the key things that for me was in college. I think that it's helped me to, before I started going to that academics, it's in my class, and then it's resistance and law of friendship. And I saw that how technology changed my life, my personal life and also my professional life. And I found that there are many certain girls who are they're just like me, but they are curious, but they don't know what to explore more. They don't know what actually is existing around of them and what is going on also in the world that they always know. And they always get used to one reality. And I just wanted to share the same experience with them. I saw people from in one world to see that technology is a useful option for everyone, especially for the girls in developing countries. When you are going and teaching the young girls, because in Afghanistan, it's taking 3 million students outside of the school, that 60% of them are adult. And they already get there because most of them they get married or they get into violence and they don't have access to anything and it's interesting. So for me, it was very important to teach young girls at the age of 12 to learn about technology, to learn about the social media, and learn how to tell their stories, and how to find information, and second, how to write the codes or build a website and make money with that. We also started to teach them about financial literacy, which was very important component to our program, because the girls learn how to manage the money from the phone to the entrepreneurship. And money is important because once the girls start to make money, lots of things will change. The family will change their view on them, and the society will change their view on them. And then unfortunately, violence against women and men is very hard in the world, and it's not only that women don't have access to education, many of them don't have access to medical, they don't have access to justice. And unfortunately, many of them still get married at a young age, under the 15 years old. And I think that we have a long way to go. We have to everyone as as responsible citizens, should do something beside of that. The government has to make a law and make sure that the law is implemented, but I think that it's part of every citizen's jobs to make sure that they contribute to their own
Passion, courage, bravery. You continue to show us that every day through everything that you do. And I think, Eric, one of the final questions that I have for you, because we don't have a lot of time left, and I would love to hear Monica's story before I end the panel. But as a young man, and you and your twin brother, I mean, I think you're the definition of what we call he for she and you and women. What was that moment when you decided that you're going to dedicate your life to ending violence against women and girls? Because I know that a lot of times men shy away from that. A lot of times, it's women's issues, and men think that they don't have a place in that conversation. It is very, very important that men are part of that conversation, because at the end of the day, they're the fathers, they're the husbands, you're the brothers, and you're the reason why this happens. So in order for it to end, you have to participate in ways to bring about solutions. So I guess for me, it's important to understand, similar to what I asked earlier. Yeah.
Thank you. So I knew that I had to, well, first of all, I was raised by a woman who's worked in women's health my entire life. So talking about women's sexual and reproductive health and rights is stuff I've been doing since I was 8 years old, literally 8 years old in the car. The other thing, though, the biggest reason I do this work is from the ages of 12 to 15, my mom was in an abusive relationship. And during that relationship, my brothers and I, we didn't do much. My mom said, don't do anything, don't say anything in the house. There was a lot of shame when we grew up. It was a very white suburb. The fact that we're half black, the racism there made it hard to talk about. And so when we were, probably at the beginning of high school, we started volunteering at a domestic and sexual violence prevention and intervention agency. And 6 months after we started volunteering there, we were able to get this man out of our lives. And so after that, me and both of my brothers, my twin brother and my little brother, we knew we had to stay in this work. We started training. We started going through training, going through education, working on campaigns. And one of the things you realize is that it really does help men when we can sort of get this idea of patriarchy out of masculinity, right? If I'm not afraid of things that are feminine, then I can be soft. I can feel my emotions. I don't have to have these unfair expectations that I have to be the head of the household, have to be the provider, have to be the one in charge. Because we see the effects on them, right? Men stop talking about their emotions at around 14 or 15 years old, and that's the same age they start to suicide at 5 times the rate of girls. They're more addicted to drugs and alcohol, which they often use to cope with the unfair expectation that you can't show any emotions, right? To numb the emotions that we get made fun of by other men. The norms about what it means to be a man also stop men from reporting or coming forward with their abuse, right? And I learned that's something I really came in contact with when I was working with men who committed domestic violence, the amount of abuse that they had endured, and how that's been a contributing factor to their lives. And so for me, I see it every day. I was raised sort of to think differently. My mom's not political, but she is passionate about women's health. And then, going through that whole domestic violence thing when I was young, really just, it provided enough fuel for a lifetime. And it's something that my brothers and I bond over. I'm literally going to go to my brother's school after this because we're teaching a class on consent and healthy relationships. And I just love to learn.
I mean, it's a lot of times people say that what we went through, when we share that, it allows us to be vulnerable. But at the same time, I personally believe that that's where our strength comes from. That's what makes us human, and that's what makes us relate with other people's pain and suffering. Personally, I feel like whenever I see someone suffering, I don't want to see that, but it's because I know what it feels like to suffer. I know what it feels like to go through something. And just hearing your story, I wish that all children that have experienced that grow up to be just like you. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. But that's why storytelling is very important. That's why having men like you openly say, this is why I do what I do, and this is what happened to me, is crucial in the fight against violence against women and girls. And Monica, I guess I would love to hear more about your story since I didn't get a bio, and I'm sure my audience would also be interested to know a little bit about you before we end the panel.
So when I started working towards the social issue and the women empowerment, I didn't realize I was like 5 years old girl, because it started very young, because I started fighting in my house with my dad. If he's saying something very masculine to my mom, I'm like, that's wrong. So I grew up seeing that, like how people dominate and everything. But my family, fortunately, they were so open-minded, they were so open that I've seen healthy relationship with my family, my mom and dad and my brother. I never felt in my life about like I'm a girl, so I have to not receive something and my brother has to. But growing up this idea, I never had this idea that how the society actually thinks about men and women and the differentiation, and there is no equality between these genders. And when I was 18 years old, I was attacked by an acid, and the whole life flipped upside down. And I have no idea why this happened to me. And for 9 years, these questions kept on going and haunted me all this time. Like, why? What did I do to deserve this? And all this time, like walking, learning, feeding, everything I've learned, I was roaming around in with a veil on my face. So people used to call me girl with a veil. That became my identity, because I was hiding my deformed face and the scars at that time. But nobody knew that I was preparing myself, and I was really making myself ready to face the world when I feel ready, not to be forced to make a point like this happened to me or something like that. So when I've gone through with this more than 50 reconstructive surgery all over my face and body, I realized that this is something happened to me. Now this is serious, and now it's increasing all over the world. So this issue of acid attack wasn't the part of my country or any country close to my country. It's happening all over the world. Then I realized this is something growing, and this is more gruesome, because technically people are trying to ruin you for your life. Because as a woman, we always get obsessed about how we look, what we feel, and it's all about appearances, comparison to the goddesses and the diva-looking girls all the time. And then I realized that's not more important thing in your life. Life is important, and you have to live your life the way you are. So I founded my foundation, my same foundation, after my dad, after we lost him in 2013. And I realized the way I have received support from my family in terms of love, and never made me feel like I'm a deformed girl or something I have to feel differently about as compared to other normal girls. I realized with his name, if I can bring that change to every girl who's been a survivor, not just only an acid attack. I want to support to all the rape survivors, domestic abuse, physical assault, and any kind of accident which makes them feel disabled, because this is what we are. We are more able than anyone we can be, because I think the damage as a woman, whatever we need to suffer to feel, we used to feel like worried and scared about it. We already suffered that, so I think nothing is gonna bad happen anymore. So with that spirit, that's what my work is all about now. That making these survivors who suffered already, make them feel normal and help them to rewrite their stories. So providing whatever the resources, it's there already, making them to reach to the right direction. So that's my part.
Thank you so much, Monica. We are unfortunately out of time. I just want to thank my amazing panelists. Eric, continue being a he for she. We need more he for she's. And thank you both for being so badass. I know I'm not supposed to say that, but yes, thank you for being badass women doing this work. And I'll hand it back over so that we can go to the next panel.
Thank you so much. Amazing. Was that not the best dressed panel you've ever seen? Wow! All right, we're jumping into SDG 16, building peace, building justice for all. I'm always fascinated about how this is all connected, how this all comes together. I was recently working with former sex workers from Nigeria. They've been forced into sex trafficking. And when I asked them how this started, many of them spoke about how they left their rural communities because they ran out of water and made their way to urban areas looking for jobs. And through that process, they ended up being trafficked. It's all connected, it all comes together. I think this panel is going to be absolutely fantastic. Pan-African feminist, African youth and African Union youth envoy, Aya Shebi, take it from here. Thank you so much.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Bonjour. Ça va? Are you ready for another panel? Yes. I'm so inspired by the previous panel. It reminded me of a Pan-African feminist quote from someone called Thomas Sankara. He was the president of Burkina Faso at the age of 32. He's my hero. And he said, there is no revolution without the emancipation of women. And he said that 60 years ago, so I wonder how many more we have to wait for our politicians to realize that gender equality is now. My panel will discuss peace and justice, and I want to welcome Aziz, Vivek, Ashley. Please join me. I want to also shout out to the live stream viewers who are seeing us, and keep engaging with us online, commenting, asking questions. I want to start introducing my panels. Aziz, I remember you, he's one of the amazing New Now leaders, but I remember Aziz mobilizing for the first Africa Summit on FGM and child marriage in Dakar, and that's my memory of you in action. But Aziz also is the founder of Raqqa, is being silenced, slaughtered to bring international attention to the plight of ordinary citizens in Raqqa. So great to see you again, Aziz. Please give him a round of applause. Let's applaud for Aziz. A human rights activist on the front line. It's not easy what Syria has gone through, and yet people like Aziz are resilient and survived war. So yes, we have to appreciate our activists. Vivek, it's nice to see you again. Vivek is a lawyer, a justice defender, founder of Namati, which has grown into the world's largest legal empowerment organization. And so you have also a network of 2,000 organizations around the world helping the 5 billion people who don't have access to justice. Welcome, Vivek. And then Ashley, on my right, with Sites of Conscience, I like the name, an international coalition with 275 members in 65 countries. And so what you do is, you have sites in different countries, a historic site, museum, or memorial that prevent memories of past traumas to be erased. So we're going to have a very interesting perspective from legal and human rights activists. I didn't introduce myself, sorry. My name is Aya. I am the African Union Youth Envoy. And I came into this role in about 8 months. But before that, I came into the activism space through the revolution in Tunisia. Anybody knows about Tunisia's revolution? Anybody knows about the Arab Spring? More hands, yes. So Arab Spring is the Western narrative, it's the revolution of dignity. But I think this panel is about dignity because peace and justice is about human dignity. And it's really sad to have, looking at SDG 16 or looking at Aspirational Agenda 2063, which calls for human rights, for peace, for justice, we have not seen progress. After 4 years of all of our governments signed up for the SDGs, we are far beyond meeting our standards and what we should be achieving. And I want to just give a few striking numbers. So by the end of 2017, 68.5 million people have been forcibly displaced as a result of prosecution, conflict, violence, or human rights violations. There are at least 10 million stateless people who have been denied nationality. 1 billion people are legally invisible because they cannot prove who they are. 1 in 3 internet users worldwide, 800 million of them are children, are subjected to violence online. And then we have corruption, bribery, theft, tax evasion, cost developing countries $1.26 trillion. So I'm not trying to depict a gloomy picture, but this is the reality. We live in a pretty messed up world. So how do we fix it? That's my simple question to the panel. You can start.
Yeah, I think you accurately depict a really grim situation. Indeed, we are living in a time of acute social and environmental peril. And law has been traditionally one of the most important tools that people have to exercise their rights, to prevent them, to protect themselves against repression. But the law for many, many people around the world is totally broken. I was part of this international task force on justice, and we did math drawn on data from over 100 countries, and we estimated that 5.1 billion people around the world, about 2/3 of the human population, face injustice every day. I'm a lawyer by training myself, and some of my best friends are lawyers, and people sometimes look to lawyers to provide access to the law, but I will tell you here today that lawyers aren't enough. Lawyers can't do it on their own. They tend to be expensive, they are often elite, they're hard to access, the language they speak is hard to understand, and so one solution in which I see a lot of promise is community legal workers who can be a kind of bridge between the formal promises of law on the one hand and real life on the other hand. And I just give one example quickly. I was in Kenya last month. Kenya, 60% of the landmass of the country is grazing land that people like the Maasai herders live on, and they have depended on that land for centuries. They coexist with lots of wildlife, zebras, giraffes, lions, etc. And they do not have formal legal rights to that land. They have customary use rights, but they don't have formal legal rights. In 2016, after decades of struggle, Kenya passed a Community Land Act, which would create a process by which communities depending on customary land could secure legal rights over it. But since 2016, not a single community has received rights under the law. And what community legal workers did was, from these various communities around the country, they helped traditional herding communities to go through the steps that the law requires, to establish bylaws, to govern their lands, to elect land management committees, which were 1/3 women, which was required by the law. And that was for the first time in history in many of these places, to map what their lands were. And last month, people from 11 such communities showed up in Nairobi. They came together and marched in Nairobi, and they demanded to see the Secretary of Lands, who's the person who has the power to grant land rights on this law, which hasn't been implemented at all. And a bunch of NGOs, ourselves included, have been trying to get an appointment with that secretary for months, but we haven't managed to see her. They saw her in one day. They came in their full regalia, Maasai traditional jewelry, etc. They saw our applications. We've done all the steps that the law requires of us. We are not going home with these applications. We want you to do your part now. And the government agreed within 4 months to process those applications, and it is on that day, and it is set up since a commission to move forward implementation of the law. And so what we have learned in some is that when the people themselves, the people who are affected by injustice, the people who are at risk, when they are able to understand what the rules say, use those rules, and invoke them to demand justice, those demands are hard to ignore.
Thanks for sharing that example, and it's very similar to also Rwanda case or Uganda, northern Uganda for transitional justice. Aziz, my question to you is, how do we fix it, but especially how do we stop all these human rights violations? How do we build global solidarity around it?
So, thank you all for coming. Can you hear me? So I would start by saying the main problem of most of the things happening, whether in Syria or around the world, are the authoritarian governments, which is something like the international or huge institutes, other powerful governments or countries who pretend to protect democracy and human rights. They don't care, and they're not trying to stop that. So right now, talking about the war in Syria, the war in Afghanistan and elsewhere, and if you would look at most of the human rights violations, they've been all happened mostly in countries where are authoritarian governments. So if we need to start protecting human rights, we need to start by defeating authoritarian government, which has been the main problem for most of the people. So if you would look where talking about the LGBT community rights, most of the LGBT community violations are in authoritarian governments countries. If we were talking about where women have been in a really bad situation, it's also in authoritarian governments. Where there's extremism, it starts also with authoritarian government. So authoritarian government helped or provided in a way an environment for so many radical extremism group to grow up. So as a human rights activist, as a journalist, as someone from Syria who witnessed like different groups, different atrocities, like people they were asking for a simple right. It's a freedom of speech. Like a freedom to say like I don't like my president. Like here in the US you can go out and say like I hate Trump and no one would get you to jail, no one would kill you, no one would torture you. But in most part of the world, like if you would say that word, you would be in troubles. You can't criticize the government, you can't criticize the president. So, and the human rights turn to be a crime. So in many countries when you say like, yeah, we need human rights for humans or citizens, it would be a crime. You would be like punished for just saying like I need like my right to express myself, my right to say like what's going on. So that's why we've been trying to push a new thing or a new division we call citizen journalism. So right now each of us can be an activist, each of us can be a journalist. So before like 20, 30 years ago, it would be hard to hear what's going on in like different countries. Right now, since we have the internet, it turned to be a good tool that people they can use. So for me, when I was in Syria, I was 20 years old. I was studying biochemistry. I was forced by my parents to study that. I really hate biochemistry. And I also wanted to be a journalist. And when the protests started in Syria, I was just going out and with my old Nokia phone, I was able to film protests. And when I uploaded my video online, it was like on Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, and I was watching like my video online. And my mom was sitting next to me. I was like, I hope my mom wouldn't be able to recognize my voice. So otherwise she would kill me. So I survived. My mom didn't notice that was me. But like later on, I knew like with my phone, I can do something. So we all came and this idea turned like to be all over. So talking about human rights, we need to talk about the internet rise. So right now, 50% of the world have access to the internet. Are all of them have like the same access to the internet? No. So we in the new now, we're working with the Web Foundation and other organizations in something called the Contract for the Web, which is a new contract would ensure the privacy security for all internet users. And on the other hand, trying to get the rest of the world, the 50% or offline, to be online, because like being online would provide a space for people to fight, to express their rights, even like they can do it with showing their identity, who they are, and if not, at least they can do it unknown, like or underground.
Thank you, Aziz, for that. And I definitely second that. From an African perspective, 70% of Africa is offline. So when we talk about equal access to internet, we don't even have that yet to talk about censorship. But I think to defeat, people overstaying in power, maybe we need more young people in power, right? How many people under 30 in the room? 35, under 35? Okay. Pretty balanced audience. So Ashley, when I was thinking of the topic of peace and justice, we talk about climate change this week, and I was thinking, we talk about climate change from climate perspective. We never say the nexus with peace, we never say the nexus with gender, and we see a lot of environmentally displaced people, we see a lot of refugee climate. You're also tackling the issue from a very interesting point of view, which is preserving memories from being erased and working with museums. So how do you think, from what you are doing, we can fix the problem of inclusive peace and human rights?
Right. Thank you so much. Yes, Sites of Conscience is a global network of historic sites and memorials that all use past struggles to connect to contemporary legacies of human rights. So we have concentration camps in Europe that fight against xenophobia today. We have detention centers in Argentina that speak out about repression today. So what I'm hearing sounds very familiar. I mean, I think when we think about what we can learn from history, we all know it's true. It's such a sort of cliche. But how to really learn from history. And I think, as Aziz mentioned, so much is about using our voice and getting stories out there. I mean, the number one tool of perpetrators in all eras, in all regions, is silence. It's the thing that allows human rights abuses to happen, and it's the thing that allows them to be forgotten. And when we work with a lot of survivors in post-conflict and conflict settings. And the thing that we do is we help them record their stories so it's not lost to history. And the thing we hear most from survivors is they want to share their stories. They want to be heard. It's not always easy. One of the first things I learned when I first got this job 4 years ago, I was talking to a colleague, and we were working in a region that was still very much in conflict, and she was explaining that we were doing a needs assessment and we were trying to gather stories, and she said she had to train her trainers to memorize the stories of survivors, because if you walked in with a pen and paper, they would freeze. They would be too scared. So sharing your story is an act of tremendous bravery and courage. And I think, though, it is the thing that we need most. So sites of conscience around the world provide platforms for victims and survivors to tell their stories. In our view, there's this old adage, I think it's Winston Churchill, that said history is written by the victors. But at sites of conscience, history is written by victims. And it's particularly marginalized people who've not had their stories recorded. So we'll work with museums, for instance. We recently funded an exhibit in Argentina about female detainees under the dictatorship, stories that we haven't heard. Those are the ones we're looking to record.
Writing our own stories, I like that. So I want to go back to Vivek, and I want to also to talk a little bit about what you do briefly, but I probably want to end for each of you with a call to action. So people who are seeing us live, people who are here, and I see really a diversity of background and people from different spaces, but also age, We talk a lot about pressure for youth and for this generation to save the world, like as if we inherited all the world's problems and now with some magic we will do it. But I think it's all about collaboration. All the generations have to come together. All the stakeholders have to come together. So maybe talk a little bit about what you do, and then a call to action, what each of us here can do.
Great, thank you. The group I work with, Namati, we help convene a global community, the Legal Empowerment Network, of people all over the world, nearly every country in the world, who are pursuing what we call the legal empowerment cycle, where they are helping communities affected by injustice to understand what the rules say as they exist now, to use those rules to try to solve problems, and then ultimately to draw on that experience of tackling specific cases to come together and try to shape the rules so that they get better. Know law, use law, shape law. Those are the three things we are trying to equip people to do around the world, whether it's land justice in Myanmar, where there's been decades of land grabbing and there's a repressive government in place, or criminal justice here in the United States, where there's a repressive and over-incarceratory criminal justice system. And so we are aiming to deepen democracy in that way all over the world. The call of action that I would offer is I would ask people, number one, to insist that their governments and their institutions make this frontline work of grassroots legal empowerment a priority, because the people who do this work, these grassroots justice defenders, are often totally underfinanced and also under threat. They're often in danger of repression and risk. And so to finance and protect that work of grassroots legal empowerment. And then the second thing is to engage in legal empowerment in your own life, to find an injustice where you live. It's not hard to find if you look. To look up what the rules say, to talk to the people who are most affected, understand what those rules are, try to pursue a solution. If the rules are inadequate, then come together to try to shape the rules. Because if all of us start knowing law, using law, and shaping law, we will be building the deeper version of democracy that I think we need.
Thank you for that call to action. So support, finance, grassroots, and end injustice where you are using law. Aziz.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk from an activist perspective. So I would say, like, as an activist, like, each of you have a phone, right? So you can like tweet, like, awareness, education is an important thing. So everyone would, like, so many people would come to me and ask me, Aziz, like, how we can be activists? I'm like, there is like no school that you can go to it and study how to be an activist. So you can start with yourself. So you can pick a topic and focus on it. So when we're talking about climate change, try to use less plastic. So in this case, you're an activist, so you're doing something. Use your voice, like tell your parents, tell your friends, tell your family. And talking about like people here in this room, like many of you might be American, so just like the voting, like elections, so you need to know that your government is not responsible about like the American people in here, but many other countries. So you need to know that, okay, pick the right person. I'm not gonna tell you who, but you know. So just like think twice before you like vote, and don't say like my vote wouldn't change anything. So you all need to go out and vote. You're gonna like make a huge change. And there were like so many statistics saying that the majority of people who don't vote are the young people, which is...
So vote and be a citizen journalist. Thank you, Aziz. Ashley, in 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds.
10
thank
seconds.
you so much.
Go ahead.
I think in order for peace to be sustainable, we have to do more listening. I think so many big international organizations go into countries, spend a lot of money and leave after, a one-day workshop or 1 year. We need to listen to communities, give them the skills that they need because they're going to be there after us and they're going to be doing the peace building, and we need to include women and other marginalized groups in that.
Listen and empower. The time is out, but my call to action, please support the new now amazing badass leaders. Please thank my panelists and appreciate them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was incredibly meaningful. We're going to jump straight into the next section. It is a interaction with ISEC and LIM. I'm going to let you guys take it from here. Noel, where you at, Noel? There you go. This looks creative. You guys have got, are we going to be making something? It looks like it. Go for it.
Hi everyone, how are you doing today? Woo! These are the management team of ISEC in the United States. So you may wondering, oh, these people is very young, how they come there in the management team. But this is all this is the special thing about our organization, but we're going to tell about this later. But first we want to, I don't like microphones though. We're going to make this really, really cool activity. So very, very quick. And then our team and volunteers are going to help us. So what is going to happen, they're going to throw this ball to you, and then you're going to hold a little piece of this, and then you're going to throw it to someone else. The idea at the end of the space is that we have this big connection, so the messier, the better. Cool? We are going to clean it after, but this is what we are going to do. So when I count 3, you are going to receive this piece of ball, and then you are going to hold it and then throw it someone else. Are you ready? Oh, I didn't hear that. Are you ready? Yes. Amazing. So 1, 2, 3. Very good. The messier, the better. We're going to do this for 1 minute. So try to connect as much as you can with other people. Okay, 30 seconds. Whoa, we don't want to break anything. So 30 seconds left. Don't hurt anyone. Okay, amazing. So now that the time is done, I just want to look for a little bit all around the room. And you can see how every one of you is holding a piece of this rope. And that means that we are all connected, and everything, even if we are from different organizations working with towards different SDGs, we all have the same purpose, and is making the world a better place, right? So that's very cool, because now we want also to share with you how ISEC is also making the world a better place.
Hello everyone, my name is Timothy, and a little bit about us. So we started in 1948 after the Second World War, and where a group of young people decided to get together, and they noticed that cross-cultural understanding was essential to preventing similar conflicts in the future. So our main goal is to strive for the peace and fulfillment of humankind's potential. So how do we do that? We do that by focusing on youth, because we believe they hold the key to the future. And we also believe leadership is the fundamental solution. So when it comes to things that we do in the organization, we offer a platform for young people to develop their leadership through practical experiences in challenging environments. We also offer that through cross-cultural exchange and also by creating these opportunities. In the world right now, the question that gets us going, that gets us thinking about all the time is that how can we engage and develop every single young person in the world? As of right now, when it comes to the population, about 50% of the population is youth. That's crazy, right? That's half the population. But the big thing that we want to push for is that we realize when it comes to youth, they don't have a voice when it comes to many of the decisions that can be affecting them in the future. So here at Isaac, we launched a survey called the Youth Speak Survey, where we're aiming to get 1 million responses from youth all around the world to be able to offer them and give them to different stakeholders so then they have a voice when it comes to things and decisions that are going to be affecting their future. So I'm going to be playing a little bit of a video that's going to be explaining that.
You are too young to know. You have no experience on this matter. Let's talk when you're older. You just don't understand. Does this sound familiar? You are one of 1.8 billion young people that live in the world today. You are a part of the largest youth generation the world has ever seen. Your voice is important, but to make it count, you need to speak up and let your voice be heard. In 2016, over 185,000 young people from 197 countries and territories spoke up. 68% of youth thought the world would be better by 2030. Their biggest fears for the future was the lack of humanity, the presence of conflict, and climate change. Youth saw leadership in people who were empathetic, responsible, courageous, and passionate. What will young people speak up for in 2019? One person can spark a movement. What if 1.8 billion voices come together? Well, this is our chance now. We want to hear your opinion and bring the voice of youth to decision makers around the world. This is the time to let your voice be heard. Speak up in the You Speak survey.
So for the youth in the crowd and also people on the live stream, we would love if you guys would fill out the survey and be a part of the voice so we can make that difference and have you guys being part of making the big decisions to help impact your world and the future. Thank you guys.
So before we go, here Noelle from our global team, she's going to cut these and you are going to take a piece of these to your home so you remember that every day counts and every day we have the opportunity to make an impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that incredible intervention. I've now got the amazing pleasure of inviting, is she here, Marlo? Let me check up. Marlo, you guys are up. Marlo is the CEO of World Merit. She's hosting the next 2 panels. I'm incredibly excited about them. Who's got the clicker thingy? Who's got the clicker? Oh, here it is. Cool. All right. And she's going to be speaking about health, economic, and social inclusion. Marlo, you're going to take it from here.
Thank you so much. Can I get this to you, please? Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And after this bit of an activity, and hopefully we all got the blood flowing a little bit to move to the next panel, which is called Health, Economic, and Social Inclusion. The people that we have on the panel today all have very different backgrounds, but what kind of threads this conversation together is the word inclusion. And you know, in doing good, there's no such thing as competition. We need everyone involved. We need all hands on deck. So I'm really excited to be talking about inclusion today with our panelists. So I don't know if they are ready, but if they can join me up here. Let me have a quick look to see if they're ready. Yeah, there they are. Welcome. Have a seat. Welcome. Good morning. Yeah, just have a seat. Come on. We'll do the introductions later on. Yeah, please join me on here. And then I think we're waiting on one more person. I'll just stay standing if that's okay. Perfect. Well, welcome here today. I'll leave the introductions over to you because I'm sure that you'll do a much better job of that than I will. I just told everyone that we're going to talk about inclusion today. So when you do your introduction, would you mind quickly touching on how your work and your background make sure that we enhance and promote inclusion across the sectors?
Hi everyone, my name is Margaret McDonald. I'm the Executive Director of the Malaria Focused Nothing But Nets campaign within the United Nations Foundation. And as part of UNF, obviously we're committed to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. But what's really important is we look to achieve the world we want to see, a healthier, happier, safer world. We need to ensure that no one is left behind in this work. I was at an event this morning that reminded us that it's not accidental that the world's poorest people, the most vulnerable, are often left out of these critical programs. So we're committed to ensuring that no one is left behind in this work. Specifically at Nothing But Nets, we work to help protect innocent people from malaria, which is a preventable, treatable disease caused by a mosquito bite. If those didn't know, many people assume sharks, bears, crocodiles are the world's deadliest animal. Well, no, let me tell you, it's actually the mosquito. Mosquitoes are the world's deadliest animal. This fact always strikes me. Nearly half the humans that have ever lived have been killed by a mosquito bite. So at Nothing But Nets, we work to ensure that the most vulnerable people, particularly children under 5, pregnant women, and people who have compromised immune systems, such as refugees and people who have been internally displaced, are protected from malaria. We help provide insecticide-treated bed nets and other life-saving tools to protect the most vulnerable, to ensure that they are included in malaria prevention programs. So.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alexandra Robinson. I'm the global president of ISIC. I think you just had an introduction to the work that we're doing with young people around the world. But for the past 71 years, we've been working with youth to promote cross-cultural opportunities to volunteer abroad, intern abroad, and work abroad, because we really believe that cross-cultural understanding is the key to preventing future conflicts, and that investing in young people and developing their leadership potential is actually one of the fundamental solutions to any problem the world faces, is putting people with the right leadership capacity and the right mindset into positions where they can make an influence. So really excited to be here today to talk about how we actually can include the youth voice in a meaningful way as we make policy changes and we make changes about the world that we live in. Over half the world's population is under 30 years old right now, and so these are the people that are going to be actually leading the world by the time we reach 2030. And so it's important that we actively participate and we actively bring young people to the table. It's a population that can often be tokenized or assigned responsibilities in change, but it's actually a group of people that have all of the capabilities to be meaningful co-participants in the change we want to see. So we want to see young people given opportunity to actually create the world by 2030. And so that's why we're looking to hear their voice with our You Speak survey, but we're also hoping to give them the opportunities to travel and make a difference in the world.
Thank you. And good morning. Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Roscoe. I'm the Executive Director of the Foundation for Western Union. And it's a great question to start with, actually. What does inclusion mean for us? Because it is a slightly different take for each of us, which ladders up to the same idea of how do we provide equal access? And so for us at Western Union Foundation, it is about equal access to opportunity. The way that we've been delivering that or trying to work towards that for the past 20 years at the Western Union Foundation is equal access to opportunity, connecting to the global economy. You know, we're focused on education and workforce skills training for young adults, and in recent years, young adults who faced the dire prospects of being forcibly displaced through conflict, through economic migration, through natural disasters. So that's been at the heart of our focus, and today we've announced a new initiative called Opportunity Beyond Borders. It's focused on helping young people who've been forcibly displaced get better access to the skills needed to grow in the global economy. and in our increasingly technology-driven global economy. So we're trying to connect the dots between what Western Union has been known for, connecting people across borders, using technology and innovation to provide a lift to local communities, particularly in developing countries, and take that and learn from that in the foundation, focusing on displaced people, getting the right skills to be part of that technology-driven global economy that we're seeing in the future. So we're excited that for us, inclusion means everybody has that equal opportunity to be a part of it. And what I'm really keen to explore and learn here this week is what are the different ways that we're seeing that be successful? Is it through enabling people through technology solutions? Is it through enabling people to have skills in technology and entrepreneurship? So we're trying to explore how to bring this to life and who to connect with to deliver on that mission.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mari Malek, and I am the founder of a charity called Stand for Education. And what we do is we empower through education and creative arts. We work with refugees, vulnerable children, and with a specific focus on girls' education. The reason why we do this is because I came here as a refugee, and we escaped because of war and poverty and man-made crises. And for me to be in the USA and have access to what I have access to right now, which is basic human rights, I had to create this charity organization to give back to young girls like me, to women like my mother who have no voices and have no opportunities in the world. So our work focuses on working with the most vulnerable and the youngest children that need access to primary education. And our work with inclusion means that including all ages, all races, and all genders. And that's what we focus on right now, because it's not just about women empowerment, it's about human empowerment. And for us to move forward as a humanity, we need to be able to include everyone and be able to tackle human and basic rights that everyone should have access for.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing that. Quick introduction about myself. My name is Marlou. I'm the CEO of international organization World Merit. We provide opportunities for young people all over the world based on merit. So something that I think came back in all of your introductions is that equal access to opportunity, and how do we make sure that opportunities goes to those who need it and those who most deserve it, regardless of where you're from, what your background is, how much money your family may or may not have had. So I'm really excited to be moderating this panel today, and why don't we let the title of today's panel be the guide for the next conversation. And starting with health, I know that the whole campaign for eradicating malaria, I think, is on its way to end it for good, I think is the phrase. So what is needed to actually get it to the end station?
Sure, thank you. Well, to step back I want to talk about the amazing progress that has been made. So 12 to 15 years ago, a child was dying from malaria every 30 seconds. So at the time, essentially what happened was the creation of the Millennium Development Goals, a number of really important programs like the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, the President's Malaria Initiative, UN partners coming together to recognize that no child should die from a preventable, treatable disease, no one should die from a mosquito bite. So a lot of political will and resources were mobilized, and long story short, flash forward 12 to 15 years, now 7 million lives have been saved, and we're now at the point where a child dies every 2 minutes. So tremendous progress from every 30 seconds, yet all of us can agree not good enough, right? So now we're at the point we've made amazing progress, in large part thanks to the large-scale provision of insecticide-treated bed nets that have increased coverage significantly, as well as important diagnostics and treatment tools. So now we're actually really beginning to see a world where we are imagining a malaria-free world. We're setting real malaria eradication as a goal. Some have thrown out the year of 2050 as being the target, believing that our generation can actually be the generation to end malaria. So it's really exciting, but we can't stop now. You know, we have more countries than ever that have eliminated malaria, that are close to elimination, at the country and regional level. But if we're truly going to eradicate malaria from this earth, which would be an amazing achievement, it really comes down to political will and financial resources, which is why I speak to the progress that's been made is because of that. We don't have to live in a world in which children have to fear mosquito bites. So it's a matter of political will, funding, and really research and development to ensure that we have even better, more advanced tools to keep up with this very tricky parasite that causes malaria. But we're excited because we really believe that we can end malaria in our generation, which would be an incredible accomplishment.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think, you know, it all comes back to the importance of investment and the priorities of investments. And I think we kind of captured it. I know as a panel, we kind of felt free enough probably to kind of change the panel because we've added education to it. But if you look at the health, economic, social, and education areas of where investment is most needed to kind of ensure that inclusion. I think you can really speak to that because what you've just mentioned as well in terms of the investment that was announced today, $50 million towards education for displaced and marginalized youth. Why did you specifically focus that investment on that demographic?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking that question. You know, I think what we're seeing is that, you know, there are more people forcibly displaced and migrating than at any other time in our human history, right? There's around 70 million people plus, and that number is just continuing to grow. And we're seeing that through crisis and conflict with people who are refugees that have fled from poverty and war. We're seeing that through economic migration, where we're trying to actually create an opportunity for ourselves and our families, they're moving. And we're seeing that through the increasing severity and frequency of natural disasters. So we're seeing this trifecta of reasons why there is forced migration. So for us, there's no kind of more important focus to make sure that the young people who have been forced to be on the move don't miss out. You know, we're seeing a lost generation at the moment of people who fled their homes and may not be in formal education or formal community for up to 17 years. How do we enable those people to not be a lost generation or the next generation not to be? And what we're seeing is amazing non-profits, grassroots non-profits supporting people on their migration route and as they settle into their new host communities. And that's where we're trying to support. So the announcement today was $50 million to help these displaced youth get the right skills, either enabled by technology or skills in a technology field, so that when they move to their host communities, and we know that people's aim is to go back home, but whilst they're in a host community, what's their opportunity? How do they integrate, learn language skills, get counselling and other soft skill support, and how, more importantly, do they have the right skills to move into the middle classes of that country and be truly integrated and have an opportunity now, not be a generation that has been lost or missed. So I think for us, that connection between inclusion, education, and economic opportunity is really the same conversation. And I think you guys are doing something very similar in ASEC. And I'm actually a child of ASEC myself. I had that opportunity in my youth, and it was life-changing. Genuinely gave me the opportunity to move from Wales to the US and to do what I'm doing today. So we're excited about that possibility. But again, we're seeing, you know, we've got more people in the middle classes now than ever before, but still 270 million young people behind the starting line with no chance of moving up into that better life for themselves and their families. And that's what we're trying to strive towards. How do we find the right partners to connect with and make that difference now, so that we don't find people have been in a refugee camp or an urban settlement for 17 years without access to quality education, to skills training, to certification that enables them to live, right? To have their life in their host community. So we're super excited about opportunity, but as with malaria, right? We're at the start. How do we get that momentum to deliver the SDGs by 2030? That's a big question, a big problem, and one we're really committed to tackling.
Okay, thank you. One thing that you touched on that I think is a great bridge to my next question is, that skill development, and it all ties back into education, which seems to be the red thread through it all, and access to opportunity and access to education. So, Marie, can you share a little bit more about how and why you founded Stand for Education? And your story is such a unique one. You have spoken up very loudly and boldly about the rights to education and inspiring young people and young girls particularly to be engaged and inspired to maybe speak up for themselves. So would you mind sharing a little bit about that, please?
Sure. Well, first, I am happy that Western Union is investing in education, and especially in the most vulnerable, because that's one of the biggest challenges that we have faced as refugees, as youth that are change makers, and as individuals that need help in the most vulnerable areas, especially grassroots organizations. And we need major investment. Most of the funds and grants go towards larger organizations, which makes it so much difficult for grassroots organizations and younger generation to make a change, because you need experience, you need resources. So for me to hear that, it's amazing, because one of our core values is collaboration and partnerships, and hopefully we'll be able to partner to change the world together, because I send money to my home through Western Union all the time. But besides that, we really need to have investment through corporations and through organizations that can help grassroots organizations. So I am so happy to hear that. To go back to my story, so I came here as a refugee. I was born during the Second Civil War in South Sudan, and we escaped because of, we are indigenous, so our villages were being attacked and burned, and we faced hate discrimination. So my mother took us, myself and my siblings, and she wanted her daughters to have a better chance and a better opportunity in life. And that's what the most thing that refugees think about: saving their children, bringing them to a safe space, and providing them with education. So this is why I started the charity organization. I work in the industry as a fashion model and actress, and for me, I felt like to have been given that platform, I should be able to use it to change the world. The fashion industry, the entertainment, and the arts industry is one of the most influential ones in the world, and we can change things. And so this is why I do what I do. But besides that, I want to read to you some facts about South Sudan. South Sudan is the youngest country in the world. This is why I focus on education there. Is 80% of South Sudan is unable to read or write. 50% are under the age of 18. 64% are women. So as the youngest country in the world, we're not just facing development and challenges because of that, but we're facing decades of political instability due to poverty. And all of this actually ties to climate change, as well as a lack of education. As Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So this is the most basic thing, to know how to read and write and be able to have rights as a human, protect your land as indigenous people or as people that are living in poverty and conflict-affected areas. And we live in a 50% poverty line in the nation. So this is not just poverty on food insecurity, but this is poverty of knowledge. And this is why it's so important that I focus on this SDG number 4, education, because without the investment of people in me being able to read and write and have the access to education, I would not be sitting here today. All of us are able to read and write. Every child in the world should be able to have access to that. So this also ties me back to helping women, which comes back to inclusion again. In my country, women do not have a voice. we don't even have access to tell our stories to the world. We do not have electricity. We are indigenous. So when things happen there, it's mainly kept silenced. It took me so much courage to use my voice to speak for them, because I don't want people to feel sorry for me. But I had to start speaking up for them. I had to start using my story to connect it back to their stories, to change their lives. So this is a matter of us being able to speak up for others when we have the access and opportunity to. When we have ways that we can change the world, it doesn't cost a thing to speak up. And also, if you are someone who can do something more to the world, I mean, I'm a refugee girl from a village, and I can't believe I'm actually in front of you all to be doing this. If I can do this, we can all do this, because everything that's happening in the world is connected, and we are connected as human. So we have to be able to work together and include each and every individual, speak up, stand up, and make those changes. So this is why I do it. I feel like I'm privileged and I'm lucky to be able to have escaped the war and be here and have the opportunities to change things in life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think, yeah, I saw some people clapping their hands if you feel that that's appropriate. But thank you for sharing such a personal story, because I think that's what kind of really engages people, and I think that's why people can relate to your story and to your mission. To wrap this panel up, because unfortunately we ran out of time, the importance of youth raising their voice and getting involved in the conversation. Would you maybe have a closing remark about how the more connected than ever world today can raise their voice and come together?
Yes, absolutely. And I can keep it brief to kind of wrap up the day. But I heard a lot of shared sentiments about education and the importance of that. And we know that that's so critical for young people. But with ISIC and the work we're doing for the past 71 years, we also know how important experiential education is, and getting young people out there to actually make the impact that they hope to make, and not have to wait until they feel that they're older or old enough or more experienced. And so we're really working to make sure that young people have the opportunities to go and work for the SDGs. We've been working with some incredible partners, Plan International, the Asian Development Bank, to be able to actually measure the impact young people are making when they go to volunteer through ISIC, and actually measure with our youth indicators how much contribution they're making to the Sustainable Development Goals. So a young person doesn't have to wait to be able to measure and see their impact on the world they want to see by 2030. They also can work to volunteer, intern abroad. Through ISIC, I've had the opportunity to live and work in Egypt and Romania, and be the only person in my office that was from the United States, and have that experience of being far, far outside of my comfort zone, to understand actually the kind of work I can do when I am in a new place and actually out of my comfort zone, able to make that kind of impact. So we're providing these opportunities for young people. We're aligning them to the SDGs and the world we want to see by the year 2030. But we also want to make sure that we can gather youth voices. So in 2016, we ran our first version of the Youth Speak survey. We were able to gather over 180,000 responses from young people in over 190 countries and territories. And so this year, we're launching it again for round 2, to actually reach out to more young people and make sure that they're able to give their voice to the world they want to see. So asking them questions like, do you actually believe the world will be in a better place by the year 2030? Who do you believe has the greatest opportunity to influence society? So we really want to take those youth voices, and as one of the oldest and largest youth-led organizations, take that to the spaces it needs to be taken, so that youth voices can be heard. So we're hoping to do that work and keep it going for 71 more years.
Thank you so much. So as we give all of them a round of applause, can we add an extra applause just for the fact that we're an all-women panel and moderator? So thank you so much. Perfect. And then I know it's been an exciting and long morning already, but I'm really excited to ask the final panelist up here to talk a little bit more about media, entertainment, fashion, all of that, and how we're going to make a difference. So can I please invite you all up here, please? I think someone needs to sit on my chair as well, so I'll do this standing up. I feel like maybe we can both stand. Okay, brilliant. Perfect. Yeah, let's do that then. So the title of this panel is called Shaping the Narrative, Media and Entertainment, Fashion, Immersive Experiences and Social Influence. That's quite a mouthful, but I think it's such a relevant topic, and it really speaks to young people as well. And when we talk today about the united voices of peace and climate action, I think it's incredibly important. So I'm so excited that there was room in the program to host this panel. So I firmly believe that every person can make a difference, and you can do it on your own and already see the difference that you're making, or when many people do that together, all of a sudden there's a huge group of people pressing and pushing for change. So the term power is in the people, I think really speaks to me, because I feel like if we all come together to drive change, nothing is impossible. So when we're talking about this specific topic, and with your background and experiences, would you mind giving a quick introduction to everyone listening, and maybe talk a little bit about that statement of powers in the people and how it relates to your work? Who would like to start?
No pressure, yeah. My name is Dr. Gayatri Banavara. I'm a professor at LIM. I have a passion for fashion, and I have a passion for social responsibility. I have been in the industry for 15 to 18 years, I say 18 mostly, and started teaching 8 years ago. I believe we all can make a change. We all can make a change in everything we do. One of the reasons I'm teaching is because I think I can make a change. Whether it is through education or it is through implementation. One thing which I have found is the students in this generation are very receptive to new ideas. I have my students sitting right here, so they are very receptive to new ideas, and also they are more innovative. The use of technology, the use of fashion, they intertwine everything. And also the SDGs, they seem to be very well connected with SDGs. I think all these connected, we are empowered to actually make a change, not just today or tomorrow, but for the future, for the 5-10 years in the future. Individuals, we have a saying in Hindi, each drop makes an ocean. So that's what it is. That's what I am trying to achieve, is having to educate students who can then go ahead and make a change in the business, because that's where I think the society lives in, and we need to make a change there.
All right. Hi, I'm Jamie Paolo. I am working with Monica on a very exciting project she'll talk about later, but I also, many years ago, because I think I'm, certainly the oldest person in the room, started a little website called style.com. And this, I know this will make no sense to any of you because you're all too young, but there was a time, and it was only about 15 years ago, where the only people who got to see the looks that came down the runway in every fashion show were the several hundred people that were actually in the room. That was it. Fashion was limited to a very strict, invited, elite audience. And I started style.com to try and open that door and actually take those pictures of those clothes and put them on the internet so that anyone could see them. So that at the time, that was kind of a revolutionary thing. I know it doesn't seem that way now, because now we all have our phones and we take pictures of that stuff ourselves, but it was kind of a turning point in accessibility. 15 years later, I've shifted tracks quite dramatically. I did my time in fashion, but now I've always enjoyed using innovative technology to tell stories in a different way. So now I have a virtual and augmented reality production studio, and we tell stories with social impact. We address things like women's access to healthcare, solitary confinement conditions in US jails, climate change, you name it. And that's it. I'll save the best for later.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nija Hearn. I am a coder, a storyteller, and more importantly, I'm here actually representing Cartoon Network as the brand manager for apps, animation, and Cartoon Network games, mobile games as well as video games. And actually, I want to stand up to actually say this because I want to make sure that it's very clear that for Cartoon Network, we want to ensure that kids' voices are heard. We want to ensure that they are front and center and that there is notice in the power of their voice. We value their voice, but there's also power in their voice. We absolutely encourage you to keep speaking truth to power. We also want to encourage you to stand in your own power and speak your truth. For thinking about power in the people, there's absolutely power in the people. When kids went out into the streets and striked on Friday, Cartoon Network stood with you. Behind me, I want you to imagine your favorite animation character standing with me and with children as well. For us, it's really important that kids feel that adults are listening and leaning into their message. The future is very much theirs. When it comes to innovation and it comes to media, they're really being able to tell their stories and have full autonomy to do so because of the social media landscape. They are the mobile first generation. They have the tools and the access. They are not novices. They are natives to this space. I am more so a novice than they are. So it's really important for us to make sure that we are in tuned and aligned to their message.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Kritika Swarup. I've worked in the fashion industry for the last 6 years as a model, but I've been heavily involved in the nonprofit space as ambassador for the Mahendra Singh Foundation and Operation Smile. So, as far as power for the people, I feel as an individual working in industries in media and entertainment, it's so important, and it's also our role and responsibility to highlight causes that are becoming more and more prominent, such as violence against women. And I feel that the public looks towards the platform of the industry, such as fashion, to find a direction to become involved in these causes. So having a relatable but also clear voice and message for these organizations is becoming more and more important even now. So.
Hi everyone, I'm a founder and CEO of Mahendra Singh Foundation, and I work with women who have been survivor in their life, survivors of rape, domestic abuse, physical assault, and acid attack survivor like myself. And I also work in the fashion industry as a designer. My whole idea of having a power in human is about having a skill set and having a knowledge. Being a survivor, it was very crucial in your life when you think about what life has for you in your future. Can you do something about that? Do you have a skill which can make the difference in your life? So we have to think about power. It has to come within. When you feel powerful yourself, you can bring changes, more power to everyone. So I chose, when I was I got attacked at the age of 18, I chose education. I stopped worrying about my scars, I stopped worrying about my deformity, and I chose education in my life, and that's what made me who I am right now. I took 2 degrees, and I have 3 degrees, and every degree has taught me something, and constantly working in a fashion industry as well made me realize that I can change the narrative of the fashion industry with my story, with my involvement in any capacity. So I take all the opportunity whenever I grab about changing the narratives of beauty, balancing the beauty as well, and any kind of a project which can help the social impact, especially for the younger generation who has to listen and get involved these SDG goals or any goal you want to. That is more important. So my feeling is when you see the power within yourself, you can bring power to your community, you can bring power to your group, your colleagues, your family, and anyone. So self-power is the most important, and that can only come with the good right sets of education, knowledge, and awareness. So that's what I do.
Thank you so much. I think, if I just start with you, Monica, if you don't mind. You said, it's about influencing the industry, isn't it? And, your background in fashion, and you said that you had been given enough reason to maybe not feel as at home in the fashion industry as you did before. So linking that back to the previous panel when we spoke about inclusion, can you share a little bit more about how you are choosing to disrupt the industry from the inside out, and why you're still so involved in the fashion industry?
That's a good question. Thank you, Marlo. Let me take you back a little bit how it all started, because when I was 18, when I got attacked, I was already enrolled to the Fashion Institute. I was grabbing my undergraduate in fashion design. I was going for my specialization in trend forecasting, and I was doing everything what any normal girl could do. But yet, when the time came, when we all had to step out of the institute and looking for a job, my appearances held me back. Not for me, but to other people. Because somehow I have realized that in fashion industry, the making comfortable, looking in a certain way was way important than the education and the knowledge I could bring to their organization. So I had the initial struggle, but then immediately I got one of the best job within my classmates, and then I realized that face comes and face goes after a certain age. It changes all the time, but the knowledge which you gain, the information you can grab, that's what makes you who you are. And I make sure that I'm gonna keep learning that and bring my knowledge first, and then my face and appearance in second. So fashion industry do see still there is a lot of barriers, and we need to work on the balancing that, because nowadays, if you see, the changes are coming when fashion industry is talking about the diversity, the sizes and the colors and other issues as well, but it's not enough. Even their diverse group is so perfect enough that you see, look, this is amazing still. But then I want to bring the changes and where every woman, every girl feel powerful, beautiful, and strong as any celebrities or it girl or influencer it can be. So as a fashion industry person, I'm also trying to make the balance where my fashion work and my appearances or anywhere could be a balance of social impact as well, and yet empower younger generation what they want to hear. So we are working on towards it. I think it's a long way to go.
Perfect, thank you. Just moving over to you, Pritika, because I think that's kind of a nice angle to go with. Even on our previous panel, we had Marie Malek talking about being a change maker model. I feel like the fashion industry, I believe it's a $1.4 trillion industry, which can make a huge impact on the social space. So being that change maker in the industry yourself, do you feel that there's a shift in movement or conversation in the space?
Yes, I definitely feel like more, especially brands that I've worked with, and especially a lot of my colleagues and fellow models and people that are working towards bettering the industry as a whole. I feel that people are becoming more aware, and even with brands that were pushing things such as fast fashion, now they are taking a couple steps back and reevaluating how they can be sustainable and how they can incorporate these goals within their business models. And I find that very inspiring, especially within an industry that had highlighted things such as what Monica was just discussing. I also feel that other than brands and other than just people that are working in the industry, I would say people that have been given platforms such as models and actresses and all of these different sort of celebrity figures, they are aligning themselves and advocating for causes that maybe had not been spotlighted before. And I find that very inspiring to me, because that's something that I want to use my platform to do, and I've been doing for the last couple years. And I think it's so thrilling, actually, to see that people are taking this step in the right direction. And there is a movement within fashion, and although, as Monica was saying, there are little steps and there are a lot of things as far as like inclusivity and beauty, and I think that is something that can be pushed forward further. And lastly, as far as sustainability goes, I've been exposed. I'm also investing in a couple countries that are using that as their main focus, and I think that's the direction that we're heading towards at this point. And I'm really looking forward to see the next few years in the growth.
Perfect, thank you. Another huge industry, sorry, I'm going to skip to James, I'll be back to you at the end, is the media and entertainment industry. I think that's about a $2.1 trillion industry, which influences so many things and so many levels of society. So how would you relate that, or how would you say that your work relates to that topic of driving change?
I would say that there are big stories to be told in the world, and we're more aware of them than ever before. We have more and more data at our fingertips, which means we're also kind of drowning in stories and information, and it's easy to actually sort of blank out some of these huge major crises that are going on because there's too much information around us. So what we try and do is deploy new technology and new kinds of storytelling to really immerse you in some of those stories and kind of make you engage with them in a much more empathetic and personal, emotional way. So we do a lot of stuff with fully immersive walk-around virtual reality. So, for example, we worked with the New York Times to do a story about domestic violence in the US. And guess what? It turns out that there is a correlation state by state between how easy it is to purchase a gun in a state and the number of domestic violence homicides that happen in that state. Duh, right? It's like the easier it is to get a gun, the more likely people are to kill their domestic partner. And there are an average of 3 shootings of domestic partners by their husband, boyfriend, whatever, per day in America, right? And we wanted to tell a story about this, so we teamed up with the New York Times, and we got the real audio transcript of a really tragic case in South Carolina where a woman was being basically held in her home by the father of her child who had a gun, and she called one of her 2 sisters to come and help her, and the 2 sisters were together, and one of them called 911. So there's a phone record of the entire phone conversation between those 2 sisters and the cops as they try and get to the house to prevent something bad happening before they get there. And in fact, they got there too late, and the guy shot the mother of his kid. And we took this piece of audio, recreated the house where it happened, so that you're there. You don't see the actual violence, but you feel like you're present as this horrible, tragic story unfolds. And it's very, very powerful. It's people come out of that story like shaken and moved. And the 2 surviving sisters have both now become very active in domestic violence prevention in South Carolina. So this piece has become a sort of installation that they tour around to raise awareness about the problem. And that's what we mostly do. We use pretty high-tech equipment and storytelling to focus on really kind of urgent crisis-level issues and find a way to bring those even closer to home than you would do if you just read about it in the newspaper or read about it on your phone and on a 2D screen.
Thank you. I can imagine that was a very powerful experience, and it's what VR, I think especially, has been told and known for to do, is increase that level of empathy and move people from maybe not even caring about a topic or caring about a topic to actually take action. Another way to do that, I think, is through education and through teaching. So would you mind telling a little bit about how you use teaching in your profession as a way to kind of drive change through the SDGs, social justice, and how you link that to business?
Because I incorporate be socially responsible, not just includes the workers, it includes the environment, it includes everything in the society. So, I do teach them in different courses, but another thing which I also do is to research a little bit on this so that I can bring that research to my students. I post questions like, okay, so you're a business. You will not run without profit one single day. If you're not making profit, you're not going to be operational. So why is it that you have to think about being socially responsible? That bothers me quite a bit. I don't know why it always bothered me when I was in the industry. That's why I think I got into teaching. But lately I've been getting answers from students, which is very hopeful. that no, we shouldn't be. We are going to be more responsible. We are going to be more sustainable. We are going to take care of the people, the environment, and the society where we belong. Other questions I pose is, what is the purpose of an organization? What is the purpose? Most of the answer before anyone discusses social responsibility, it comes to making profit. And I'm mind blown. I'm like, making profit should be the result. The first purpose of an organization should be satisfying its customers. And profit will come automatically. Who are the customers? Who are the stakeholders? The customers nowadays are very enlightened. They want businesses who are more socially responsible. So all these questions, when I pose my students, I kind of get them to understand in depth, not just a marketing perspective or not just a department perspective of social responsibility, but also how do you make a change? When do you go into the business world? And that's what I intend to do. That's what I have been trying to do, is to make sure that the students understand so that when they enter the workforce, they make the change.
Perfect, thank you. In terms of moving to action, I think there's no generation or age group that's easier to kind of motivate to go out on the street and who don't want to waste time talking or thinking about something, but who really want to get to action than I think are young people. I saved you for last because I think we can have quite a powerful statement about young people and their inclusion into the topic. And I'm particularly interested in the term when we were talking that you've mentioned about digital autonomy. So I wanted to ask you if maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that as we wrap up this final panel of the day.
Sure, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So digital autonomy is, I think it's one of those terms that really resonates with where we're going as a media company, and being able to provide choice and control. I think it's really a crucial component to really catapult us towards the 2030 goals. There's this next big wave or next big thing that we're all hoping for to obtain to really get us there, right? And we talk about new technology and what's emerging, and we talk about VR, we talk about AR. The next big thing, it's still unknown. There's just a big question mark, right? Being able to provide a space for kids to explore, reimagine, and really remix when it comes to even Cartoon Network and our IP, being able to tap into new technologies that we can leverage for kids as well to tell their stories. We partner with a few different partners, but Pacer being one of them for anti-bullying, and then 826 for being able to tell youth stories through animation and them being able to tell their own stories. So it's really crucial that when we talk about digital autonomy, that they know that their stories are being told authentically and that they're in a space where they're also safe, creating a safe space for kids that also encourages, as we talk about gender equality, but encourages inclusion and encourages compassion and empathy. And when we look at the digital space in particular, it is one that is easily consumed with a lot of different voices. We all want to break through the clutter. But so it's really important that the spaces that we create for kids in particular are safe, that they feel that they are heard. And we look at the numbers, kids, when you're talking about teenagers, 1 in 3 feel as if they are more understood and safe in their digital world versus in the real world. So that's a number that's really important as we kind of close out, as we talk about, you know, what we're doing in terms of being able to project what's happening in the digital space and being able to reimagine, particularly in the gaming world, and being able to tap into a hero and being able to become that hero, being able to look at a vision and a story that you're able to then control. If you think of a controller in your hand in video gaming, that's the same level of control that you want to be able to take out into the real world. So, and we think of that and we have a vision, a strategy in the gaming space, we're able to then explore that and take it out into the real world and really make a difference. Because in the end of the day, yes, you're able to tap into a hero that might be something that you might be able to relate to, right? But at the end of it, you are ultimately that hero too. So that control is still yours outside of the digital world as well. So.
Thank you so much. So on that note, this is just a personal note, but I'm really excited to say that my baby is actually in the room today. So I'm very hopeful and excited for her to grow up in a world where people like yourselves are fighting for a better world. So thank you so much for being with me here today. So as we wrap up the day, there will be a poem read to us. So if everyone can please have a seat for the final couple of minutes as we wrap up today and reflect on what has been shared. So I would like to welcome Olympia here up front.
Hello, my name is Olympia and I'm a poet. The poem I'm going to be saying for you all is about my home, which is Venice, and it's about change, it's about gentrification, about the landscape of I don't know, how things change. So it's called Venice Gentrification. I fall in love like the ocean, like riptide and home, never rare and always deep. Name me Venice breakwater, constantly splitting apart but never hurting. Watch from the water as the tide pools and everything inside get taken back by the sea. Every new storefront is an exit wound of shots we've been hearing, all the golden little pearls returning to dust and sand. This is to say that this change comes as a false prophet, is weak like a gun, is a slow death and then a fast one. Promises to clean up, to make new, to take away, to redo. Promises to push out, to step on, to take in, it's taken. I've been craving what we used to be. All the fairy tales warn me that when the ocean goes missing, do not run after it. Do not whistle for the soft sand and praise discovery. I will never learn how to run the other way. The sharp stick of sea anemones, the pulled fingers away from, have courage and swallow the rest of me next time. Stop leaving parts of me on the shore. Whatever is left will always run back. Thank you.
Thank you so much for ending this in such an artistic way. Guys, it's been a fantastic day. We've heard so many amazing voices, and of course the conversation doesn't end here. This entire thing has been live streamed. If you can, please share this live stream. Dive into the comments section of the live stream and start engaging, start having conversations with all of the speakers that you've heard today. We will personally respond to you guys. Thank you to the Mahindra Singh Foundation. Thank you to Peace Day. Thank you to the New Now. Thank you to everybody who's made this event possible. My name's Yusuf Omar. Thank you so much for having us.